Hey everyone, Mitch coming up with the Commander Scores Studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, got a brutal deck tech for you. That's right, Nekusar the Mindrazer, a commander that needs no introduction, but I will introduce him here in a little bit. Yeah, basically, hey, cause your opponents a ton of pain. You know, in Commander, you like to draw a bunch of cards. This commander says, go ahead and do that, but when you do, I'm going to hurt you a lot. And if you don't even try to draw a ton of cards, I'm going to force you to and hurt you a lot. Now, on this episode, with my other deck techs, all my deck techs are very budget friendly. And this one is no exception. It is a $37.26 budget, according to Moxfield. And yeah, every single one of the cards in the deck is less than $1, except for the commander I said to look over real quick. The commander itself is $6.32, so slightly outside of, that $1 range, and that actually is, contributing to that budget quite a bit. But yeah, you can make up for that in some other ways, and if you already have Nekusar, great. The rest of the deck is very cheap for you. Regardless, Nekusar, the, skeleton, zombie, wizard, whatever it is that needs no introduction, a 2/4 zombie wizard that costs 2 blue, black, red. If each player's draw set, the player draws this card. Whenever the opponent draws a card, Nekusar is going to deal 1 damage to that player. So, basically, hey, everyone else gets to draw a card. I mean, everyone gets to draw an extra card, right? Kind of like a Howling Mine effect. Everyone gets to draw an extra card. Yay, group hug, right? No, not at all. Group slug. You're going to be taking extra damage if you're my opponent when you are drawing these cards. So, I get to draw 2 cards at no penalty. You are going to be drawing 2 cards, during your turn, just because you're drawing your regular one, plus the additional one, getting 2 damage on every single turn. And of course, we're going to be adding to that with other damaging effects, adding to that with other ways that we're going to be forcing opponents to draw cards. Yeah, this is going to be quite painful for your opponents. So yeah, Nekusar can definitely be a very, very, very threatening, very, very deadly commander. Now, I will remind you that in these deck techs, I'm going to be taking through different tactics to show you how this deck works and how we're going to win with it. I'm going to have these cards grouped so it's easier to digest. And of course, if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out my deck list link in the description below. Now, let's jump into Ramp. So, Ramp is going to be my first category of cards, the first tactic of cards. And of course, first up is Wayfarer's Bauble. Almost messed up, the catch line, the catchphrase that, it's what I'm known for, right? Wayfarer's Bauble. So, looks like we had the Warhammer treatment on this one. Thanks, Moxfield. Anyways, pay 2, tap, sacrifice it. Go get a basic into play, tap. Fantastic ramp. Some other very standard ramp cards in this as well. A lot of great mana rocks. Arcane Signet, tap for any of our colors. Demir Signet, kind of like the other signets with, Izzet and Rakdos, essentially. Being able to filter our mana into that is great. Again, the important part about our ramp package is it's going to be very, very effective, very, very efficient. I believe, outside of Wayfarer's Bauble, which is a great turn 1 play, turn 2 crack to go get, our basic land. Everything else is a turn 2 mana rock. Very effective, very efficient, each tapping for 1 essentially. Felwar Stone usually can tap for our colors. Mind Stone can tap for a colorless, so none of our colors, but we can sacrifice it to draw a card if we need to. Then we've got our budget talismans with Talisman of Creativity and Talisman of Dominance. Thank you for that reprint, Warhammer 40k, for the Talisman of Dominance. Each of these can tap for a colorless, or they can tap for 1 of 2 colors and deal 1 damage just. So if we need to, utilize the color, we can take the damage. And then we are going to be running a Lone Diamond with Sky Diamond as well. Entering the battlefield, taps for a blue. Again, still effective, still efficient. We're going to be off to the races quite quickly with this kind of a ramp package. But now let's move on to our next tactic, which I'm calling More Pain. And yeah, we've got a lot of ways to make things a bit more uncomfortable for our opponents. Faith of the Devoted is a great card in this deck. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, pay 1, drain your opponent's 2, gain 2. Yeah, we've got a lot of ways to draw a lot of cards in this deck, a lot of ways to discard cards, not just for opponents, but for ourselves as well. So yeah, we can get a lot of life gain with this. We can get a lot of life drain with this. It's a great card for this deck. Glenhorn Buccaneer, an automatic way to actually punish our opponents for us discarding cards. Whenever we discard a card, 1 damage to every single one of our opponents. So again, with some of those big discard effects, this can be a huge amount of damage. Speaking of which, Megrim, on the other end of things, whenever our opponents discard cards, they get 2 damage from this, and that can really add up throughout the game, or again, in a big bursty way as well. Underworld Dreams, basically a second copy of our commander, at least part of it. Whenever we draw, or whenever an opponent draws a card, they take an extra damage from this. So yeah, just drawing a singular card is going to take 2 damage every single time with this in play. Brawlin, basically another Glinthorn Buccaneer. Whenever we discard a card, it gets a counter on it, and it's going to deal 1 damage to each opponent as well. So yeah, that damage is really important. Fel Spectre, entering the battlefield, making an opponent discard a card. That is nice. Great card disadvantage. Great triggers can happen from that as well. On top of that, whenever opponent discards a card, they lose 2 life. So kind of like a Megrim here as well. And yeah, stacking these on top of each other can just be so deadly. Gixian Puppeteer, whenever you draw your second card each turn, you're going to have each opponent lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. Yeah, we can draw a second card pretty much on every single turn if we really want to, once we're set up properly, once we've got the right cards in our hand. So we can, with one trip around the table, drain our opponents by 8 from this. And also, if this dies, we can bring back another creature. Maybe, Glinthorn Buccaneer, essentially. Mana value 3 or less. Raider's Wake, again, basically another Megrim, essentially. Whenever opponent discards a card, they lose 2 life. Also, an attack trigger on this with Raid, essentially. So, yeah, being able to make an opponent discard a card with that, too, is great. Spiteful Visions. This really is like a second copy of our commander, but in an even more brutal way. Beginning of each player's draw step, they draw a card. So, yeah, again, like our commander. On top of that, whenever a player draws a card, Spiteful Vision deals 1 damage to that player. This one does count us as well. So, yeah. Unfortunately, quite brutal for us, but still, we're going to be burning things down so quick that we are going to be kind of outpacing our opponents, so that even if we are taking damage from this, again, we've got ways to mitigate that life loss like we've talked about so far, but also, yeah, we're going to be taking them out faster than we get taken out with this. Again, we've got a lot of more pain effects. Obnixilis, basically another Underworld Dreams. Hey, whenever opponent draws a card, 1 damage to that player. Also, we can -2, destroy a creature. Its controller draws 2 cards. It can be a great way to finish a player off. And then finally, Psychosis Crawler. Again, we've got a lot of giant draw spells in this deck. Ways to make everyone draw a ton of cards, including ourselves, obviously. And yeah, when we do, whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. So this can be a great finisher for this deck. Now we're going to be moving on, though, and talking about the golden pig of this deck, which is, of course, the #1 card ever 99. And the golden pig of this deck is Phyrexian Tyranny. This card is incredible. This card is insane, and it's only 46 cents. So, yeah, a very good card. An enchantment for blue, black, red. Whenever a player draws a card, that player loses 2 life unless they pay 2. That is, a lot of mana to pay. Keep in mind, we've got other cards out there like, Smothering Tithe, as an example. How many times do players actually pay the 2 on the card draw? Not very often, because 2 is a ton of mana to pay. And because of that, then, they're going to be paying a bunch of life, because they're going to be drawing cards, obviously, throughout the game. When they do, they lose life. Again, this does affect us. It does impact us, but still. We are going to be slugging our opponents so quickly that we're going to be able to take them out before we get taken out. And again, we do have ways to mitigate this life loss and other ways to gain life. Again, this 3-mana enchantment can do so much work for us, can make it just absolutely impossible for our opponents, well, to pay for that too, for the amount of times that they're going to have to in order to survive. And it can really help us take our opponents out. So this thing is just very efficient, very effective, and in my opinion, definitely worthy of the title of Golden Pig of this deck. Now, though, let's move on to our all draw section, and we've got a lot of cards that can force players to draw a lot of cards. Fascination, each player draws X cards. Very simply, a great X spell that can be a good finisher for us. Kami of the Crescent Moon, beginning of each player's draw step, player draws an additional card. Basically, again, like another Howling Mine, another addition to our commander. Skyscribing, again, very similar to Fascination. Everyone draws X cards. We can forecast it as well if we really need to have everyone draw a card, just one singular card. That might be a good finisher for us if we really need it, but yeah, the X spell is kind of what we really care about. Stormfist Crusader, hey, at the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card, loses 1 life. Just nice additional free card draw for us, essentially. That is going to just be extra pain for our opponents. Vision Skynes, this is a great card, 2 mana, each player draws 2. So yeah, very effective, very efficient way to draw a good amount of cards or force a lot of card draw. Slightly, worse, but better in a way. Words of Wisdom, we draw 2, each other player draws 1. So yeah, when it comes to us getting an advantage on our opponent's card advantage wise, this is slightly better, but when it comes to actually dealing damage, slightly worse. Fevered Visions, a great repeatable way to get people to draw cards, and also some additional punishing effects as well. Beginning of each player's end step, player draws a card. If that player's my opponent and they have, 4 more cards in hand, they take an extra 2 damage. So just an extra damage source here as well. So yeah, definitely kind of a more pain card as well. Magus the Wheel, a wheel effect. Finally, here we go. Pay 1 in a red, tap, sacrifice. Each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. So yeah, again, there's that forced discard. Again, we've got a lot of ways to take advantage of that, a lot of ways to punish our opponents for that, and a way to reset their hand to 7, or force them to draw 7 for a lot of damage first. Reset their hand to 7, so if we do have them discard again, it's going to be even more pain from things like Megrim. So the Chaos Rider, a great card as well. When our opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, we get a devil. Again, we've got plenty of ways to force our opponents to draw cards on not their turn. So yeah, we can make a lot of devils with this. And if those devils die, they can ping. On top of that, whenever one of our devils we control attack one of our players, we each draw a card and discard a card at random. Diminishing returns, 4 mana. Basically, hey, get rid of your hand, get rid of your graveyard, shuffle in your deck, exile the top, 10 cards of your library, and then each player draws up to 7. So again, forced card draw, essentially. I believe it does say up to, so they can choose not to draw fully up to 7. But they're going to have an interesting decision after they lose their hand. So we're going to see what happens with that. Speaking of which, Tales of the Ancestors. Hey, if one player has a giant hand, even if that's us and other players don't, let's share the wealth. Everyone goes up to the highest amount of cards that someone has in their hand, essentially. And again, this can just be a great finisher if we have a ton of cards in our hand and we say, you know what? I think everyone should have 14 cards in their hand, or whatever it is. And then everyone draws up and gets pinged down, with the Underworld Dreams and our Commander type effects. Whispering Madness, another great wheel, one that is repeatable with that cipher. Each player discards their card. Each card discards their hand, then draws cards equally great number of cards a player discarded this way. So like a windfall type effect, but again, a repeatable one. Imposing Grandeur, again, another interesting card that kind of just makes it so opponents actually have to make a decision with this one. Again, we still get the benefit. Each player would discard their hand and draw cards equal to the greatest value of a commander they own on the battlefield or in the command zone. Basically, we're going to be drawing 5 with this. Discard, draw 5. If opponents want to, sure you can. Again, there's probably going to be, a bit of pain that comes along with that as well. You might probably take some pain anyways, though, from some of our artifacts. We've got a Psychosis Crawler in here. Great. Got a Glenhorn Buccaneer. Great. We're going to be punishing our opponents anyways. Game plan, yet another kind of reset effect. Everyone shuffles their hand and graveyard in the library, draws 7, then exile this. Ruin Grinder, another one kind of like Imposing Grandeur where they get the decision. They get the choice. When this dies, each player can discard their hand and draw 7 cards. So, again, if a player is low on cards, they might decide to do this even if they're going to be taking a ton of damage. Runehorn Hellkite gives players not that option. They don't have an option. From our graveyard, we pay 5 in a red, exile this, and then everyone has to wheel. Discard their hand, draw 7 cards. So, yeah, this is a great one for us to just chuck in our graveyard at a certain point after we've been discarding cards, and then utilize it when we need to. Dragon Mage, a repeatable wheel effect. Whenever it connects with a player and it has flying, so it can usually get through at least one opponent, we are going to have everyone wheel. Temporal Cascade, we can force everyone to shuffle their hand and graveyard in their library if we really want to, just set everyone down to no cards. Or we can make everyone draw 7 cards, or we can entwine and do both. There's definitely going to be opportunities when it's good to just do one or the other. But yeah, mostly the drawing of 7 cards. And then we've got Commit to Memory. A bit of a flexible card. Puts target spell or non-permanent top its owner's library second from the top. So a good piece of removal right there. But then with that Aftermath, we again have a way to reset hands. Hey, everyone shuffles everything and then draws 7. So it's a great other card that we can also get into our graveyard and then utilize from there. Moving on, though, we're going to be talking about target draw effects. So on top of the all draw effects, which again we have a ton of, we've got the target draw effects like Damnable Pact, which is a great finisher on a player. Target player draws X card, loses X life. Again, this is basically going to double up at the very least with our commander, with other damage sources as well, like maybe like an Underworld Dreams or whatnot. We've got other ways to just really, really make this really hurtful on one player, kind of like a giant fireball spell for them. Or if we really need to draw cards ourselves, of course we can target ourselves. Cerebral Vortex, this is a great card in this deck. Target player draws 2 cards, then Cerebral Vortex deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards they draw on this turn. This, if you can stack with some wheel effects, can be incredible. Again, if you Magus the Wheel, Dragon Mage, just start having players drawing a ton of cards, discarding a ton of cards, and then utilizing this. I mean, you can have a 20 damage spell with this very, very easily. Collective Defiance, another kind of wheel effect. Target player discards all the cards in their hand and then draws that many cards. It's got some other things with Escalate as well, but yeah, that's usually what you're going to use for it, either again on yourself if you need to, or on an opponent. Laqua's Creativity, again, somewhat similar. Target player draws cards equal to the number of cards in their hand, then discards that many cards. This can be an incredible card that can basically just take someone up to an incredible amount of cards, take them back down. And again, if we've got Megarim in play, if we've got, Psychosis Crawler, if we've got, other kinds of cards that can really add more pain, we can really punish an opponent. Eldritch Pact, oh my goodness, this card is just, it can be a one-shot KO. Target player draws X cards and loses X life or X the number of cards in their graveyard. Again, we are going to be having players draw and discard a ton of cards with our wheel effects. When we do, well, hey, once we're at a good point, let's cast this. Let's really punish a player. Let's take them out. So yeah, that can be a massive draw spell that has that player lose a lot of life as well. Moving on though, let's talk about some additional value cards that are just nice for us to have in play. Cure to Mysteries is a great one. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, scry 1. So yeah, this can just be a great card to have in play because we're going to be discarding a lot of cards again with our wheel effects, and so we can scry a ton with that for a lot of great card selection. Surly Badgersaur, another great card when it comes to discarding and getting additional value. Whenever you discard a creature card, you get a counter on Surly Badgersaur. Whenever you discard a land card, you get a treasure token, so that can really have the fun keep going. Whenever you discard a non-creature non-land card, you can have Surly Badgersaur fight a creature, which can be, again, a great way to just take creatures out after it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger from those discards. Speaking of taking things out, let's talk about some removal as well. Alchemist Retrieval, a great flexible removal spell because this one actually can be utilized on one of our things too. Basically, 1 mana if we want to bounce one of our non-land permanents, 2 mana if we want to bounce an opponent's non-land permanent. So it can be a good way to protect something or take something out. Feed the Swarm, speaking of taking something out, destroy a creature or an enchantment, lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Rakdos Charm, a very flexible card. Exile cards to target player's graveyard. If you really need to, a good panic button against self-mill decks or reanimator decks. Destroy target artifact or each creature does 1 damage to its controller. Again, this can be a finisher itself too. Bedevil, destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Very flexible. Chaos Warp, hey, let's shuffle that really threatening permanent into your library and hope you hit something different off the top that's not nearly as threatening. Aether Gale, let's bounce 6 target non-land permanents back to the owner's hands for just 5 mana. Very effective, very efficient. Deadly Tempest, again, can be another finisher for us. Destroy all creatures. Each player loses life equal to the number of creatures destroyed this way that they controlled, essentially. So yeah, hey, you got a lot of creatures, you got that token deck, now you're going to pay for it. River's Rebuke, set someone back to the Stone Age, bounce their entire board, all their non-land permanents back to their hand. Yeah, you're no longer a threat anymore, thank you. Necromantic Selection. This one is basically a board wipe that says, hey, I'm going to get rid of everything, but I get to keep 1 creature, essentially. I get to either take one of your creatures, or I get to keep my own, and yeah, it might just be my commander. I might just keep Nekusar in play and take everything else out, essentially. Speaking of which, in Garrick's Wake, a great one-sided board wipe. Destroy all creatures you don't control, and all planeswalkers you don't control as well. When it comes to protection as well, we've got some ways to protect our commander outside of, like Alchemist Retrieval, like I talked about earlier. Dispel, counter target instant spell. Great card. Negate, counter target non-creature spell. Again, another great counter spell as well. Swiftfoot Boots, equip creature as hexproof and haste. Great to put on our commander. And then Winged Boots. All the boots, apparently, right? Equip creature as flying and Ward 4. Ward 4 is a huge commitment to have to, add initial, 4 mana? Essentially, we talked about, attacks of 2. Attacks of 4 is just ridiculous. So yeah, it can be quite a bit. Now, when it comes to lands, we're going to be running 37 lands in this deck, and most of your typical, like Command Tower. We've got fetch lands like Evolving Wilds. We've got ways to actually, fix our mana, essentially. Mirror Landscape can help us ramp as well. Got a couple of, we got essentially like Scry lands as well, which can help out with advanced card selection. But the one land that I really want to highlight from here is a huge land for this deck, which is Skyreach Sanitarium, which I'm very glad is, at least for the time being, budget friendly, at least for me. Tap for colors, pay 2, tap. Each player draws a card, then discards a card. A loot effect on a land like this is huge, especially for a deck like this. Hey, if you've got, again, like Megram in play, if you've got Fel Spectre, those kinds of cards in play, Underworld Dreams, additional ways to cause your opponent's pain, this can be a great card to just throughout the game deal additional damage, loss of life as well, and yeah, it can be a good finisher for you as well, just on a land. So definitely a huge part of this deck as well. And yeah, again, not really taking up a spot, just since it is just, one of your lands. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. If you are interested in the deck, make sure you check out the deck list link in the description below. And yeah, comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.